impossible!
I broke your hammer!
Brother, this guy stinks!
5 years. This is when superhero movies started its major downfall in quality. Yes, there have been a couple of gems spread out over those last 5 years since Endgame. However, the general consensus is that the superhero genre has well overstayed its welcome. This video will find answers on if and how superhero films will once again dominate the box office like it did during Marvel's peak. It's become clear and evident that these movies are no longer made to please the fans. Rather, it's made to make as much money as possible. This is sadly seen with a lot of other franchises. Audiences are drawn to spectacle and action, which is why for me, it is not entirely the studio's fault. Just look at Godzilla as an example. Godzilla Minus One was one of the best movies to come out in 2023. That film did have some action in it, however the focus of that film was its compelling characters. Now compare that to Godzilla x Kong, a film that sacrifices good character writing and storytelling in favor of visually pleasing special effects and action. Now, I'm sure you guys are wondering, why the hell is this guy talking about Godzilla in a video about superheroes? Well, my point is that audiences are drawn to visually stunning films. Despite the lukewarm reviews of Godzilla x Kong, everyone went to watch that film, grossing $571 million, doing far better than the superior written story of Minus One. And yes, part of the reason is due to that film being Japanese, but my point still stands. We are in a state where film companies are recommended to favor action in order to make a profit in their films, therefore sacrificing crucial screen time for character development, story structure, and even exposition. They'll throw in action just for the sake of it, and sadly, this applies to superhero films as well. Now, there are certainly exceptions to this rule. The first Joker film was a huge success despite its lack of action, and The Boys' first season didn't really have that many fight scenes. I'm not saying that action shouldn't be in these movies. I'm just saying that audiences are very tired of decent action backed up by a mid-story. Studios need to focus on creating a solid script before figuring out cool action scenes. It's a big reason as to why audiences are falling out of love for the superhero genre. Now keep in mind that you can do both. Spiderverse and The Batman are great films that complement its great narrative with great action, not the other way around. However, the issue is that most other superhero films follow a certain formula that involves way too much action, which highlights a big issue that needs to be addressed by superhero films and Marvel in particular. We've all heard this phrase, every superhero movie is the same. The action rarely stands out. The story plays out the same, everyone even talks the same way, to the point where you can see it coming from like a mile away.
The world needed a hero.
It got me.
Instead, it got me.
Oh, I'm nuts! I'm nuts! Let's go! God, this is so fucking generic.
This is exactly why I never watched Venom 3 and countless other superhero films. I may not know the specifics, but the general story structure feels the same. It's like watching a filler arc of an anime. It's just better to skip it. However, what isn't Marvel's fault is something I really don't see many people bring up, which is that this Marvel formula has been transferred to other franchises.
Oh, they fly now!
They fly now!
They fly now!
Your carriage awaits! I'm gonna kick you on the mouth!
So I really like being alive. I take it back. I want to die.
All of those jokes are from Star Wars, Godzilla, and their biggest competitors, DC. Everyone wanted a piece of Marvel's success, so they mistakenly thought that audiences enjoyed Marvel jokes, when in reality it was cute and quirky for its time, however often got old really fast.
Stark, we need a plan of attack!
I have a plan. Attack.
Boy, if you don't get...
DC is the biggest criminal in this instance though. Their first couple of films were all tonally and structurally different from Marvel, focusing on a much darker tone. However, since then, DC have decided to copy Marvel and become a lot more goofy, because Marvel are just doing so much better than them. As a huge fan of DC, this is something I really despise, because not only are you doing a disservice to DC fans who have come to love these characters from stories that don't resemble the films at all, you're also harming the entire superhero genre by making your movies way too similar to Marvel, therefore exhausting audiences of watching the same formula for every superhero film. That's part of the reason as to why people love The Boys and Invincible so much. It's a breath of fresh air within the superhero genre. The humor, the gore, The villains are all very different compared to the typical Marvel formula. That's another reason why I love these two films so much. Yes, they're great films, but they're also distinctly different from every other superhero film. However, by far the most annoying part of the Marvel formula are the fucking jokes.
Does he look like a spider?
No, more like a man.
Climbs walls, shoots webs.
Yeah, bingo.
Out of his butt?
Eat my hammer! Don't be a dick!
It's never too late to stop being a dick.
They all sound the same. None of their personalities stand out. One-liners used to be cool, but now they're just shit. It's baffling to me how writers think it's normal to kill the pacing of a movie in order to make jokes. Let me give Thor: Love and Thunder as an example. An absolutely atrocious movie that has me frowning the entire time. There is, and I'm not kidding, a 2-minute scene of Matt Damon playing as Loki that serves absolutely nothing to the story apart from making a joke. You're supposed to keep a certain flow to the film that consistently makes the story move along. However, these jokes kill the pacing all the fucking time.
Giant goats.
Oh, look at those. They are wonderful.
Okay, I know I sound like the funny police telling superhero films not to be comedic. That's not what I'm saying. You can do that. But similarly to action, don't make jokes if it kills the pacing or retracts from the story. I don't mind the jokes in Infinity War because they're quick and snappy and helps lift the mood of a pretty grim story. However, when you spend a few minutes of my time that isn't funny, but also kills the pacing of a film, that's where I have a problem. We now enter a pretty overlooked reason as to why these films are gradually getting worse. A reason that lowers the chance of superhero films ever reaching the top again, which is that Marvel and DC are quickly running out of source material. Marvel was still introducing charismatic and likable characters a decade into their run. However, there simply isn't an infinite pool of superheroes. Sure, they've only covered like a few of them, but it's going to take a lot of convincing to get people to watch Thunderbolts. However, this is where the good news comes in. The DC Extended Universe also doesn't have an infinite number of superheroes. However, that doesn't matter since they're completely rebooting the DCEU. For those of you who aren't aware, DC realized that they fucked up. They had some success along the way, but the entire project largely didn't go to plan, if they even had a plan to begin with. So they're getting new actors, new stories, and a brand new universe. And the man behind this all is none other than James Gunn, the man responsible for one of the best trilogies in the MCU, along with the good Suicide Squad, not the shit one, and Peacemaker, which by the way has a brilliant intro. Do I think he's the right man for the job? Well, it really depends on his approach. If these DC films are still goofy and silly, then I want to make it very clear that I'm not on board. Which is probably a weird thing to say, since all of his films are pretty goofy. I just don't want to see any more Marvel formulas. And I know I'm not the only one thinking this. James Gunn has it in him to create a dark and emotional film. And if he takes that approach, then I genuinely believe there's a real chance of superhero films reaching the top again, with DC leading the charge. This is called planning. It's not like DC are rebooting franchises only to make a few films. They are planning out the next 10, maybe 20 films. They finally have some direction and justification as to why each film is being made and what it leads to. Something Marvel has been severely lacking in recent years. Marvel had an excellent 11-year run, from Iron Man 1 all the way through to Avengers Endgame. There was a clear sense of direction for those movies. Marvel's long-term plan was to release certain films within a certain time frame, in order to enhance its future movies. The first Avengers film was a success in part due to the audience enjoying these charismatic characters in movies leading up to that film. And they continued using this to their advantage up until Endgame. Audiences had a reason to watch the majority of Marvel films in order to get the full picture. Ant-Man enters the quantum realm within the post-credits of Ant-Man and the Wasp, which becomes a huge plot point in Avengers Endgame. The conflict between Iron Man and Captain America within Civil War does not come out of nowhere. It's clearly seen in previous films.
I could do this all day.
This is because, from the very beginning, Marvel had a clear vision of their plans, something DC are now doing as well. This simply isn't the case for Marvel anymore. You can tell Robert Downey Jr. was never supposed to come back and play as Dr. Doom. They're becoming desperate. They loosely had an idea with the multiverse, however it never led to anything, plus the films that introduced the multiverse were so shit. Speaking of Robert Downey Jr., I wonder how much money they must have given him in order to convince him to come back. That's another thing that's gonna have to change with superhero films. One of the reasons they often don't make enough money is because of a film's budget.
No, that cost me.
374 million.
No, not me toaster. That cost me.
250 million. 350 million.
Now, I know this may sound like a bold take, and I wouldn't have said this without the benefit of hindsight. However, I think the MCU should have stopped making movies after Endgame, just like the end of any other franchise. Spend as much time as necessary to plan out your next decade of films, and come back stronger than ever. We've seen many other franchises do this with varying degrees of success. Actually, I'm looking at the list right now, and almost every single franchise that has returned after the years is worse than the originals, except for like maybe Mad Max. That's honestly super interesting. Well, actually, do you guys remember when Fortnite died and there was just a black hole for a few months? That honestly worked really well and it gained a lot of popularity. That could really work for Marvel, and I still think they should go through with Doctor Doom. However, if this whole Doomsday thing doesn't work out, then they should follow in the footsteps of DC and reboot the franchise. Okay, I want to make it clear that I do enjoy superhero movies. Or should I say, I used to. I am still very excited for a few upcoming films, and particularly the DC Extended Universe. I'm just passionate about this topic because it's sad to see how little I find myself enjoying these new films. Now here comes the ultimate question. The title of this video. Do I think the superhero genre has a resurgence and reaches the heights of the MCU when Infinity War and Endgame were released? Honestly, with the right tools, I really do think DC has a shot to claim that spot. There are plenty of amazing DC stories out there, from the comics to the animated films to the video games. And remember, they used to have incredible movies in the past. A lot of work has to be done, however, as we really take the MCU for granted. 11 years straight of movies that, yeah, some of them aren't great, but the majority of them are still amazing. DC has characters that can resonate and entertain audiences if they're written correctly. However, if I was to be completely honest with Marvel, I don't think they'll reach the top again. However, I would love to be proven wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think superhero movies will ever reach the top again. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and consider subscribing. I want to reach 1,000 subs before the end of the year, so I will love you if you do that. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.